When my dad was around 50, he got an African gray parrot. He had always loved parrots, so I was thrilled when he got one after he retired. He named him Kevin. My dad taught Kevin a bunch of vocabulary words and actually trained Kevin to understand the meaning of some words like hello, what's up, food, thank you, good, and a few others. When my dad passed away at age 70, it was time for my siblings and I to decide what would happen to Kevin. My brother and sister didn't want the responsibility of keeping Kevin in their home, and they didn't want to either. But I couldn't bear the thought of Kevin moving into a new home. Kevin was one of my last links to my dad, and in a sense, Kevin was my dad's best friend, so I decided to adopt Kevin. I put Kevin's cage in our family room. We don't have a basement, so the playroom is considered the lowest level of the house. Kevin is a moderately loud parrot, usually very talkative during certain hours of the day, mostly in the morning. But in the afternoons and evenings, Kevin is quieter. When Kevin gets too loud, I put a blanket over his cage, and that usually quiets him down. I watch TV in the playroom in the evenings to keep Kevin company. Then around 10 p.m. I move him up to the bedroom to put him to sleep. I've had Kevin for 2 years, so I know exactly how Kevin behaves and when he acts out of character. One night in December, around 11 p.m., Kevin started making noises while I was trying to sleep. I sleep with the door open because I live alone and need to hear anything that happens in the house. Hearing Kevin after dark, especially this late, is unusual and something is clearly bothering him. I went down to the playroom to see what was bothering Kevin. Kevin was awake on the lower perch in the cage, looking at me and saying things like, hello and what's up, in Kevin's name, while Kevin nodded and moved his body as if he was dancing. I tried to feed Kevin, but Kevin wouldn't eat, so I covered him with a blanket, hoping he would stop. I was in the kitchen when I stopped because Kevin kept making noises and I had a feeling he wouldn't stop. I didn't know what to do because I'm not a bird expert. I went back to the playroom and took off the blanket. Kevin was still dancing and making annoying noises. I didn't realize what was going on until I heard noises coming from the pantry a few feet away from Kevin's cage. I walked over and put my hand on the light switch outside the door. The door had a large glass panel, like many pantry doors. When I turned on the light switch, I saw the outline of a person inside. My flight or fight response kicked in, and I chose to fight. I opened the door and screamed for an adrenaline rush, then pulled the man out of the closet and threw him to the floor. He tried to fight back, but I easily overpowered him and held him in what I would describe as a chokehold. He was a homeless man in his 50s who smelled bad. I yelled at him, asking who he was and why he was in my house. He tried to attack my face, but I continued to strangle him and punch him. Meanwhile, Kevin was going crazy in the cage. When the man seemed to weaken, I ran to the nearest phone and turned around and held him on the floor while I called 911. The man was taken to jail but had no identification. He was homeless and had nothing, so he was considered liable to justice, meaning that even if I tried to sue him, I wouldn't be able to get anything out of him. He broke into my pantry that night, opening jars of peanut butter, boxes of crackers, candy, and various canned foods. If it weren't for my dad's parrot, I don't know what else that man would have taken or done in my house. I am grateful to Kevin and like to think that a part of my dad is watching over me through Kevin. This story takes place when I was a junior in high school. To give you a better idea, I'll give you a little background. I was a very busy student back then, taking all the hard classes and playing on several varsity sports teams. As a result, I was always busy and didn't have much time for myself, and in part I was grateful for that. It helped me escape the world where my parents had just divorced and my older brother had just gone off to college. It was just me and my younger brother, who was also a swimmer and very smart. We were very similar, even to this day, but perhaps because of the pressures of our family situation, we didn't get along very well. On a damp Midwestern winter day, I finished school and swimming and still had to sit down and do a few hours of homework. This time I had to write an essay for an advanced class that I wasn't very interested in. I dropped my swim bag at the door when I got home and looked around to see if anyone was home. No one. Dad must be taking Reese to swim practice. His team had a pool time slot after the high school team. I popped a Cheez-It in my mouth and headed downstairs to my room to do my homework. Our house was a middle-class 2-story house with an unfinished basement, except for what I called my office. My dad used to work from home, but not anymore. I was the only one who used it, so my family, or what was left of it, just called it Quinn's office. I walked across the concrete floor and unattached carpet samples down to the only finished room in the basement. I turned on the CFL lights. Like every other night after practice, I still had a few hours of homework left, so I turned on my computer and started typing. I typed and typed for what felt like an hour, trying to articulate what hedonism and the picture of Dorian Gray meant to me as best I could, or as convincingly as I could. In the darkness, I heard my brother's voice calling, "Quinny, Quinny, come up here." Almost reflexively, I called back, "Reese, I'm working. What do you need?" We used to shout across the house like brothers, but it took me a moment to realize I hadn't heard him come home. There was no response. A few minutes later, I heard my brother's voice singing, "Quinny, Quinny, come up here." Hearing those words echo across the dark concrete floor felt strange. He was supposed to be at swimming practice. I called back to ask what he needed, but got no answer. I thought about starting my essay over, but the family situation was fragile, and I didn't want to get in trouble if my brother really needed something. I decided to get up and find out for myself. I ran up the basement stairs in the only way a high schooler can and called out again, "Reese, what's going on? I'm so busy." I checked the main floor for my brother or any sign of him coming home. No shoes, no backpack, so he wasn't home, and no car in the driveway. The only reason Dad would be out now was to pick him up. Satisfied, I turned back toward the stairs when I heard my brother's voice. "Quinny, Quinny, come up here." This time, every hair on my body stood up. There was no reason to believe anyone was upstairs. I reached the bottom of the second floor stairs and called out again, "Reese, what's going on? Are you okay?" A minute passed with no answer. "Reese, I'm so busy. Can you tell me what's going on?" It was quiet for too long as I stared up the dark stairs. Logically, I had no reason to believe anyone was there until I heard Reese's calm voice say, this time without his usual sing-song, "Quinny, Quinny, come up here." "What?" I asked under my breath. I couldn't make sense of the situation. I had gone through every possible scenario. A break-in, a false accent, a prank. I should have seen something by now. It had to be Reese, and maybe helping him would make me a better big brother. I started up the stairs, my heart pounding with every step, and was about to reach the dark second floor when I heard the garage door motor start. I ran down the stairs and looked out the window. It was my dad's sedan, and he and his brother were getting out. I staggered from the window to the foyer where they would enter and felt my heart almost stop. I collapsed to the floor and began to cry uncontrollably.